While reactions continue to pour in over the nomination of the Executive Director of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Jean Mensa, as the Electoral Commission's chairperson, for some it's about her neutrality, and for others it's about the President respecting a case in court over the dismissal of the former chairperson, Charlotte Osei. And I've been joined by Rhoda Osei-Afo. She's a research officer with the Center for Democratic Development, and we'll be having some conversations here as well as bringing other perspectives on this. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, we've seen some strong points in our democracy, especially during the Fourth Republic. The election petition is one of them, and the removal of an electoral commissioner and her replacement is also another one. Would you consider this a good point in our democracy?
Thank you very much. I think it's important that we continue to have some of these engagements on some of these issues. It's important for various stakeholders to pour out their feelings, their perceptions, and whatever they have is legitimate. They have the right to do so. It helps strengthen our democracy, and I think we shouldn't discard some of these developments at all.
Interesting. Now, there has been a lot of concerns, and one of them has to do with the neutrality of Madame Jean Mensa. And we've heard others raise concerns about the fact that maybe it's time the President steps aside from appointing the Electoral Commission's executives or its chairpersons. What would your take on that be?
Thank you very much. First of all, a lot of issues have been raised about the appointment powers of the President, and I think this is one area that has been discussed extensively. Some of us, civil society actors, were hoping that the opportunity that we had with the Constitutional Review Commission could help us address some of these issues. Unfortunately, that process has stalled. We are hoping that this current administration will revisit that agenda so that we can address some of these issues, because really we have some concern, and I mean the CDD Ghana, we have raised concerns about the way in which we make some of these appointments. Under the circumstances, all that we've been advocating for is broad consultations, and yet in the end the discretion has been with the appointing power to either consult or not to consult. But there's no doubt that we have to look into the mode of appointment, how we do this. We can either take it away from the presidency, or the president can still do it, but we can still introduce some measures that can check the president in terms of how these appointments have been made. So there's no doubt that we really need to take another look at the way in which we make some of these appointments.
Well, the opposition NDC is making a case for the Council of State to reject President Akufo-Addo's nominee for Electoral Commission's top job. And as the Council of State prepares to submit its advice on the nominees, well, the NDC says she's politically tainted and unlikely to remain neutral as EC boss if confirmed. Another political party raising concerns is the Progressive People's Party. They have congratulated the President's nominees for EC chair and her deputies, but their concern is they were not consulted prior to the decision. Let me come back to you, Madam, because the Constitution, per the process involved in appointing an EC chair, does not include as mandatory the President consulting or involving political parties. But for the sake of democracy, you're coming from the CDD, would you think that the President should have made it a point to consult, and also considering the conditions under which this woman is being appointed?
You were very right. If you look at the constitutional provisions by itself, it doesn't require of the President to engage in some kind of consultations. However, it is expected that the President will do this in going about these appointments. And CDD, for instance, had issued a statement in the midst of all the development that happened, urging the President that in view of the issues that came up, and given all the concerns that even parties like the NDC had about the removal of the previous administration, it will be in the good interest of the country, in our democracy, and in terms of instilling confidence in an incoming administration, for the President to at least be seen as consulting, engaging in some broad consultation. There are various stakeholders. It's important for you to get them on board in terms of who becomes the next chairperson of the commission, so that we can move forward in unison. At least some consensus can be built in that regard. It does a lot in terms of instilling confidence, like I said, in whoever is coming in. But so far, we haven't seen much of that. I only heard the Deputy Chief of Staff yesterday trying to state that they did engage. Of course, I'm sure the President did some consultations, but again, the issue is, who did the President consult? Because from where we sit as civil society, we didn't really see any obvious consultations taking place.
Consulted?
I'm not sure about that. We weren't, and these are some of the challenges that we have. There's nothing wrong if the President consults the parties, the political parties, their stakeholders, and consulting them doesn't necessarily mean that you are bound by their recommendations or their decisions, but you could get some good information, recommendation, objections, issues that could inform the appointment that you make. And so there's some value in it. We still feel that it is not too late. The Council of State has the opportunity to do that. Given the names that the President has recommended or nominated, the Council can still engage key actors in terms of what they feel, what they think, what they make of these appointments. Already we are having the NDC raising some issues. We need to listen to them to find out what are the merits of the cases they are putting across. Are they just mere allegations? But we need to give them a listening ear. And of course, if there are no bases, we shouldn't just be tied down by what they feel about this process.
Interesting. Now, the Council of State is yet, we are made to believe, yet to give an advice on these recommendations made by the President. We also know, as per a Supreme Court ruling, that the President is not bound by the advice of the Council of State. But what would you rather have the President do? Again, let me refer to the circumstances because it makes this case peculiar. What would you rather have him do if the Council of State has an objection to any of the names that has been put out, that have been put out?
I mean, looking at what the President has done, there are two things. It's a bit challenging. I mean, putting myself in the shoes of the Council of State, the President has written to them to advise him on the nominations he's made, and yet the President has gone public with these names. And so the issue is, what is the Council of State going to say, and how is the public going to take it? Assuming that the Council advised the President against it, against the decision, first of all, the issue is we may never get to know of the advice that the Council of State may proffer the President, and it's important. It would be good for the Council of State to let Ghanaians know of whatever advice they give. But this information, I doubt we'll ever get to find out. But there's opportunity for them to do something. Let the President, I mean, first of all, they have to consult, get to know of what other stakeholders are feeling about these appointments, the issues they are raising, and then try in the best interest of this country to also advise the President based on whatever information they have. And we can proceed from there. So I really expect that the Council of State will do something unusual in context, because we are used to hearing the President recommend, the President nominated, the Council agreed. We are hoping that they will take some practical measures and we will get to know about what really happened in this process. All
right, so apart from concerns raised by political parties, there is another with a legal dimension. Lawyer Martin Pegu says the President should have respected a court application seeking an injunction on the appointment of another EC chair after the dismissal of Charlotte Osei.
So basically what I say is that, you know, because we are, you know, one nation, we are all Ghanaians, generally, when these things come, I think we should listen to them. We should try to give it the best consideration that it needs to be, because we all know very well that the EC is such a critical governance institution. The EC is the midwife of our elections. So generally, you would want somebody who stands tall, generally somebody who stands above partisan considerations. So let's interrogate the concerns that they are raising and find whether there is merit, you see, because that's how come that prior to this appointment, you know, I'd been here, several other platforms.
Even for broader consultation.
The President even started it when he was in opposition. So we thought that, oh, then now that he's in power, then it makes it easy, because he was one of the front runners.
So can I ask you a straight question then? Did you feel that that was done, the broader consultation?
Absolutely.
I think you particularly mentioned Gabi.
Absolutely.
And what he had to say.
Yeah, absolutely no, because the President had set the bar. He said broad, open, so broad and open consultations. So to the extent that
he used border.
see,
border,
we
yes.
have
He said broader.
Yes, you know, the University of
and
Cape
wider consultations.
when he was addressing the
where
students,
memorandum could be invited and all.
Yes, you know, and then apart from that one, you know, apart from talking to students at the University of Cape Coast, there were other platforms. So apart from the president, I think Gabi Ochiridaku, whom I mentioned the other day, Macmenu, they were actually kind of throttling Mahama those days. I remember it was all over. So even Samson had to write a piece that, the president is not bound. And it's because of the way, and we all joined in because we thought that, look, let's expand the frontiers of our democracy. So to be candid, what is happening is a slap in our face.
So we've had lawyer Kpebu there. What do you make of his concerns?
So there are, there are issues to do with the exit of the previous administration, the way in which it was done, which is being contested in courts. I assume that the court processes will still go on, and depending on the outcome of the verdict of the courts, we will get to know which way to go, whether we are going to revoke these new appointments or what. So the outcome of the court cases will help us a lot in terms of moving forward. But we can still go ahead with this process, which is what we have done.
Interesting. Well, Dr. Eric Owusu, the Dean of Studies and Research at the Institute of Local Government Studies, is suggesting a reform in the appointment of the Electoral Commissioner, delimiting the president for spearheading the exercise. What do you make of that? For him, he thinks that, look, the issue of appointing an EC chairperson by the president seems to put a certain political color to the whole process, even if it doesn't exist at all. For example, Madame Charlotte Osei was tagged NDC because she was appointed by the former president. Now we have Madame Jean Mensa, who's also having to deal with the accusation of being politically tainted. What do you make of Dr. Osai's suggestion?
Yeah, that's a very important point. You know, so long it appears that given the kind of politics we have in our country, it appears that so far as we have the political authority appointing, even if it is an angel, we are going to have some of these issues coming up all the time. The good thing, though, is that we have had the NDC be in this situation before. In 2015, when the appointment of Mrs. Charlotte Osei was done, we had similar issues coming up from the NPP. Now the tables have turned. We have the NPP now in power doing the appointment, NDC raising similar issues, almost the same issues that NPP raised at the time. And so the key thing that this underscores is the fact that we need to take away this appointment process from the executive president. And I think it will help us in terms of how we build consensus on some of these issues. We really need to look at that, which is the point I made earlier.
You said the CDD has also made this call as an organization. Are there any other ways you recommend? If the president is not going to appoint, who then
There are, if you look around the world, and always we are looking at best practices elsewhere, if you look at what is happening in South Africa, in Kenya, there are other kinds of appointments. There are instances where an independent commission is appointed and they are given the power to do the search. There are instances where they do OPS competitive. People have to apply for the position. They are vetted. They are interviewed. And they are shortlisted. Sometimes the president is given a shortlist of, say, 10 names, 5 names, to make an appointment out of those names after an independent body has done all the hard work, the process of interviewing and all of that. So there are some good practices around the world that we can look up to, even if we still want to have the president play some role in this appointment. We can either entirely take it away from him, give it to an independent commission, the Public Services Commission, or we can have the president play a limited role in terms of what he or she can do in this process.
Thank you very much. Rhoda Osei-Afo is Research Officer at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD. Well, if the Council of State offers or prefers the advice to the president, we know that we would expect these nominees to appear before Parliament's committee for vetting, appointments committee for vetting. We'll bring you all the updates you need to know on this particular development.